Up next in NBN news, the Blues women secure a win in the State of Origin. Farewell to a local hero, Mike Stanwell. And of course, the Hunters GP Exodus. That's coming up next on NBN News. Good morning, my name's Conklin McLeod with NBN's Saturday News. Today, Isabel Kelly secures a match-winning try as New South Wales secure their first State of Origin women's title since 2019. An emotional farewell to a local hero with Mike Stanwell up at his funeral, and the Hunters GP Exodus. But first, all of us right up in New South Wales are still on the verge of celebrations this morning, and also we've been doing that since last night. After New South Wales secured their first win in secured their first ever premiership in the women's State of Origin for the first time in 2 years. And also, it's become almost a decade since New South Wales last won a premiership in 2019. It was huge for New South Wales. It was New South Wales versus Queensland. And of course, the Maroons scored first. Then New South Wales fought back, with the Blues securing one of the best tries to quickly level it at 4-4, just in time to kick the goal at 6-4. Then another try came above, with it now at 10-4, and also with a goal kicked at 12-4. Then the Maroons tried to do everything they could, but of course the Blues had plenty of penalties, and they were now leading 16-10. And of course, with Queensland scoring a try, they thought they'd secured a third State of Origin title. But however, they were denied a try.
Other Origin!
And that was all thanks to the video referee, who denied the Maroons a win in the dying minutes. And of course, the New South Wales Sky Blues knew exactly what to do, as Isabel Kelly scored the match-winning try, as New South Wales claimed their first premiership since 2019. Meanwhile, the men's under-19s became huge. Queensland scored first. Then New South Wales levelled it at 4-4. With a kick to come at 6-4. New South Wales scored plenty more. And it certainly was. And because of it, the Blues knew exactly what to do. Break the Maroons' hearts. And of course, the Blues knew exactly what to do, score plenty of tries, delighting all their fans.
Beautiful grubber kick to get it down. Yes, he does. Just great control by Jonah Pezzett. We saw the chip over the top for the last try in the corner this time.
Things went from bad to worse for the Maroons. There was a massive push and shove. Then they had a player sent off. Because of that, he used his hat to whack the sheds in a massive amount of frustration.
So Weaver,
As the Blues kicked one of the best penalties of all time.
ooh, means a bit of black nosy, you can see.
But thankfully, that didn't stop New South Wales from scoring one of the best tries of all.
Pezzett, it will be a try to the Blues and a second for Asamoah. Harvey Norman.
Of course, but it didn't matter though, as the Blues under 19 secured a 32-4 win. And of course, the Newcastle Knights, Hannah Southwell, was part of the Blues premiership winning side last night, which was absolutely incredible. Meanwhile, to other news, and of course, Michael Stanwell couldn't walk past any wrongdoing. Delivering an eulogy at Mr. Stanwell's June the 4th funeral, his friend Ross Kerridge told the parable of the Good Samaritan who helps a traveller who was beaten, left for dead, and ignored by a passing Jewish priest, and livid. Dr. Kerridge said that it was the Samaritan who helped the injured man, bound up his wounds, and arranged for his care. For me, the parallels with the awful situation that Mike was in are profound. So many in our community have looked the other way and kept silent about their suspicions and their knowledge of dreadful things that were happening, but Mike confronted them to his own great cost. Mr. Stanwell's brother, Professor Peter Stanwell, said the story resonated with mourners who gathered at St. Paul's Catholic Church in Rutherford to pay their respects to the father of 10 and grandfather to 18, who as a dedicated teacher stood up to two pedophile priests. He died in hospital aged 66 on May 28 after a period of poor mental health. Mr. Stanwell was a teacher at Tullybuck Central School before becoming principal at St. Joseph's Primary School at Merriwar, where he saw parish priest Dennis McCallum touch a girl while she was sitting on his knee. He drove twice from Merriwar to Newcastle to report Mr. McCallendon to Bishop Lord Leo Clark and tried to ban the priest from entering school grounds. The church moved Mr. Allendon to Adamstown, where he abused others. Mr. Stanwell later became principal at St. Paul's at Rutherford, where he and priest David O'Hean clashed over whether the school should expand to take non-Catholic enrollments, and after teachers expressed concern over O'Hearn's forceful behaviour, he unsuccessfully appealed to Bishop Michael McLone for help. Meanwhile, he punched Mr. Stanwell was stood down after the two men clashed at a parish committee meeting, and he confronted O'Hearn. He punched O'Hearn 7 months later in March 1999 after deciding to complain to the Vatican about the priest. Mr. Stanwell pleaded guilty and was placed on a 12-month good behaviour bond. He resumed teaching after successful unfair dismissal proceedings, but did not regain his principal position. O'Hearn was stood down in May 2008 after abuse allegations were reported to police and was jailed. Professor Stanwell and his brother confided to their sister Anne that the pain of listening to their students' experiences had affected his mental health. But of course, Dr. Kerridge said Mr. Stanwell was. He said reports in recent years about the scale of the abuse would have re-triggered his brother's pain. People are willing to recognize that people involved in a stressful environment in a war situation or exposed to extreme trauma as police officers. There's this idea they've been exposed to mental stress, he said. But if you were a school teacher and exposed to the activities of pedophile priests, that's pretty traumatic also. He was thinking, these people's lives are at risk unless I do something, and tried to do something, but every step he tried to take had a barrier put up in front of it. His experiences contributed to his mental state, and that changed into mental state and that changed in mental state contributed to his alcohol use and essentially earlier loss of life. He died at 66. He should have lived longer than that. Meanwhile, Dr. Carriage said Mr. Stanwell was chosen to give him the vote of thanks and expressed his gratitude to everyone except the Duke, but Mike then ferociously stopped, paused, and then stepped back to the microphone. He then said, I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. None of this would have happened, Prince Philip, without your inspiration and leadership in setting up of the scheme which I have been privileged to attain a gold award. So ultimately, the main thanks for today is to you in establishing this program. And if you or someone you know needs help, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14. A critical shortage of GPs could soon leave some hunter towns up the creek without a doctor. National modelling predicts there will be a shortfall of almost 11,500 GPs by 2032. But parts of the Hunter are already struggling, with Cessnock, Marundi, Scone, Denman, Merriwar, Muswellbrook and Singleton identified as being particularly vulnerable. Most of the 404 practices in the Hunter and Central Coast are actively recruiting doctors already, as they grapple with an increasing workload, a retiring workforce, and fewer medical graduates pursuing a career in a general practice. The Hunter, New England and Central Coast area has lost close to 100 GPs in the past 2 years. In areas like Dungog, that ratio jumped to more than 2,900 people for every one doctor. Mr. Nankervis said that were about 1,890 GPs in the region in 2018, it is now closer to 1,800, and 239 of those are registrars. Cessnock, Murrundi, Scone, Denman, Merriwar, Muswellbrook, and Singleton are among the hunter areas the PHN has identified as being the risk of current or imminent closures. Up next in sport, the North Stars hoping to beat Brisbane this weekend.
We want to see your dreams come true. And the reason that we're here today is just because of you. This is our town. It's here that we're born and bred. We've been through the rough times, been through the tough times, know about the good times ahead. We know how to do it your way. Build it up in your own hometown. Make it grow with the people you know. People who won't let you down. You know where you're going, and we wanna go with you. Wanna keep it growing, wanna keep it going, and we know where you're going to. This is our town. It's here that we're born and bred. Wanna see you growing, wanna see you going, wanna keep you moving ahead. This is our town. It belongs to you and me. And the Newcastle permanent is our society. Hey, this is our town. Hey, this is our town. It's our town, our town.
There are sports, and there are extreme sports. Just like there are compact four-wheel drives, and there's the Nissan X-Trail. An extreme all-mode four-wheel drive system, an extreme interior, and extreme power. The X-Trail. Only Nissan takes the compact four-wheel drive to the extreme.
To ice hockey, and of course, Newcastle forward Pat Naden says there was a similar feeling about this year's North Stars campaign to when the team won back-to-back titles in 2015-16. A veteran of the side played his 150th game earlier this year. Naden was part of both championship winning teams and said ahead of two exhibition games in Brisbane this weekend, which of course is today and tomorrow. He believed the North Stars, who are of course in second, are on track for their 7th Australian Ice Hockey League title. Naden, one of the side's most experienced players, is an assistant captain this year. The Flowerville product, who started playing ice hockey when he was 9 and spent a couple of his high school years in Canada, said it was a big honour to have the leadership role. An electrician now living in Merriweather, Nathan said his teammates head to Brisbane buoyed by Sunday's win over Canberra following a loss to the AIHL leaders last Saturday. The Brisbane Lightning are seeking entry to the AIHL next year and required to prove themselves in a series of exhibition matches this year. Queensland hasn't had a side since the Gold Coast Blue Tongues in 2012, and North Stars general manager Gary Dorey said the Lightning had presented a strong case. He said, right now it's very positive. The North Stars will be without Patrick Ward and Robert Malloy in Brisbane. The basketball and American imports, Nicole Munger and Joshawn Smith will make their long-awaited home court debuts when the Newcastle Falcons host Manly Warringah Sea Eagles in the NBL 1 East doubleheader at the Newcastle Basketball Stadium tonight. Munger is expected to be joined on court by Spanish club teammate Ana Fernandez Aurora, who was due to arrive yesterday afternoon in Sydney when she was being met by manager and Falcons coach Chloe Maloney to be driven back to Newcastle. A 39-year-old point guard, Fernandez Aurora's played alongside Munger for the Ore club. For the Ore club in the Canary Islands earlier this year. Even although she has received a FIBA international clearance, Fernandez Aurora could be used sparingly in her first appearance in Newcastle colours. There's bad news for Maitland in the Hunter Coast Premier Hockey. They'll be without 3 key players when they host the second place Gosford tomorrow. The Rams have just 2 wins in 7 games and are locked in a battle with West, also on 4 points. For 4th spot, they face a difficult task without player coach Matt McGann, his brother Pat, and main striker Isaac Formilo. Centre midfielder Matt has a high ankle strain and foot ligament damage from a match against West 3 weeks ago, which forced him to miss the state titles. Pat, an attacking midfielder, and Familo have hamstring strains. He may be out of sheet necessity or more likely desperation, but it seems the Stars are aligned for the Knights to have another crack at signing much maligned West Tigers player Luke Brooks for next season. Brooks is rumoured to be getting ready to be dumped to New South Wales Cup next week, and his future at the Tigers next season is likely to hinge on whether their incoming coach wants him on the books in 2023 or not. And of course, if Brooks moves to Newcastle, he'll sign with the club. Meanwhile, still on the Knights, and of course their greatest fullback, Robbie O'Davis, could not contain his frustration after Callum Ponga was caught badly out of position for Canberra's last-ditch match, controversial match-winning try on last Sunday. Robbie O didn't hold back, posting on his social media account after the Knights' defeat, "Not that I know anything, but will someone please tell our fullback to not defend on the front line? We gave away 1-2 tries a week because the fullback is up in the defence line, not at the back. If they kick it through, he's supposed to be there. Why am I the only one that sees this every week?" To Newcastle Rugby League, and of course Curry are heading into today's match against Cessnock, but they're missing 13 players, and because of that, the coach Adam Watts is confident that the Bulldogs will be able to field a side. After being forced to withdraw from a catch-up game against Central during the week, the last place Bulldogs are again struggling for numbers. Most injuries, couple long-term, coupled with some suspensions and illness, have left the Bulldogs gravely depleted ahead of season's second Caulfield Derby against up at Cully Cully Sports Ground at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Bad news for Lake Macquarie. They've agreed to drop from Hunter Rugby Union's premier competition to the second tier for the remainder of the season, but how many teams they field will hinge on how many players they have come from Monday. The Roos were informed on Tuesday night that the club had been demoted to the HRU Divisional Rugby due to a series of lopsided scorelines and issues with player numbers and player strength. Meanwhile, initially, the battling club vowed to fight the decision. They notified New South Wales Rugby Union and considered taking legal action. However, after meeting with the Hunter Rugby Union board on Thursday night, Lake Macquarie have switched their attention to rebuilding the club in the second tier. Divisional rugby consists of now 7 one-team clubs. The Roos have 63 registered players. Meanwhile, Premiership winning skipper Steve Lamont returns for Hamilton against Nelson Bay in other matches. The Wanderers will defend the Tony Wanzi Shield against the Southern Beaches. Meanwhile, up at Townsend Oval, Merewether and Maitland will do battle. Meanwhile, the University, who were scheduled to meet Lake Macquarie and Singleton, have the bye. Surfing and Merewether's Jackson Baker has grounded his way to another first-round victory on the championship tour to make the round of 16 at the Royal Pro. The CT's rookie best two-wave score of 9.87 was enough to relegate countryman Callum Robson 9.37 and South African Geordie Smith 9.16 to the elimination round at Sakwarima. To local AFL, and of course, Maitland coach Dustin Springs admit it's been a tough year winning on only one game, but with the youngest side in the Black Diamond Cup, he can see imagining only improvement in the Saints. After playing 8 games, Maitland are running second last and only sit above Singleton and for and against. Meanwhile, 5th place Warners Bay face a tough task at home against competition leaders Kalanival, while Telgor Avoca are scheduled to host Maitland. And of course, Cardiff travel to Singleton and Newcastle City have the bye. Sturvish, your local weather for Newcastle and the Hunter is coming up after the break.
If you're looking for a great PC, it's what's inside that counts. Intel microprocessors are the brains inside the world's most popular computers. Just look for a PC with the Intel Inside logo.
Sounds like you need something mighty big on taste for a mighty small price. Whoa! Like my double crunch burger, the mighty big taste that'll rock ya. And at just $2.95, the price will bring the house down.
There are sports, and there are extreme sports. Just like there are compact four-wheel drives, and there's the Nissan X-Trail. An extreme all-mode four-wheel drive system, an extreme interior, an extreme the compact four-wheel drive to the extreme.
To the weather, and it was all right. And it's going to be all right for Newcastle today. And of course, it's a maximum of 21, which is sunny. Winds northwesterly of up to 15 to 20 knots with kilometres an hour, becoming light in the late afternoon. And also, thankfully, there's no chance of any rain. The forecast, it's of course 21 for Newcastle, Toronto, and Wallsend. Now to the Hunter, it's really sunny, but there'll be a patch of morning frost. Lights becoming west to northwesterly, and of course it'll be okay. And of course it's 21, and also it's 21 for both Newcastle and Gosford, 20 for both Maitland and Singleton, and 19 for Scone. Onto the waters. And of course, it'll be weatherly 10 to 15 knots. And of course, with the winds reaching 15 to 20 knots until earlier this afternoon. The seas up to 1.5 meters, decreasing below 1 meter. There's good news for Newcastle this morning with the high tide at 5:56 this morning, the low at around about 11:19 in the afternoon, and of course the sun came up just at 6:56, setting at, and of course it's setting at around about 4:55. And of course Newcastle will be alright for tomorrow as well, and it will be extremely fine for the Hunter as well. Finally this morning, the Big Picture Fest is returned to Newcastle in September, with 8 new mall sites to be revealed. The 3-day large-scale street art festival allows world-class artists to showcase their work alongside exceptional local talent. Spread across 20 prominent sites in the city, the festival will include an opening night party, exhibition, artist talks, workshops, graffiti jams, walking and cycling trails, and more. And that's about it for all the latest news on NBN for this Saturday. And don't forget, next bulletin is on later this evening. And from all of us here, see you then. And don't forget, have a really good morning.